The acceleration of AI use is causing military and civilian agencies to rethink their cybersecurity strategies. The path to doing that's taking two tracks. Vishal Amin is General Manager of Defense Security at Microsoft. Microsoft sponsors this edition of the FedGov Today podcast. Vishal, it's great to talk to you again. Those two tracks that I'm referring to are securing the artificial intelligence tools themselves, and then how to apply artificial intelligence effectively to cybersecurity tools all across the enterprise, not just limited to cyber tools for artificial intelligence. What are the differences, similarities, disparities in thinking about security and AI in those two different ways? Welcome.
Thanks for having me again, Francis, and great to see you. I think there's so much to unpack there. We look at it very just in the face right now. I mean, it's very, what's the problem now? When I think about protecting some of these artificial intelligence systems, I'm thinking about access controls and encryption, regular audits and updates. I think the one thing I think about the most is the robust training models, right? Ensuring that these models are trained on diverse, high quality data, right? Minimizing the biases, the vulnerabilities. These are just now and ready, and these things that we are doing. And we talk about securing these AI systems, but really what this is doing is this isn't something that you can just lock up and secure. You have to continually audit, and you have to continually train, and it has to be explainable. And I think a lot of those initiatives go to the use cases that we currently see. You and I have spoken about these here recently. Is most of our customers, and this should ring a bell, even in my peers in the national security space, is predictive analytics, automated response, right? Enhanced threat detection, behavioral analytics or analysis. And we're looking at some of these challenges around that space as well that we see very often, like vulnerability exploitation or the ethical or privacy concerns behind AI. But there's nothing new here in these questions. So hopefully that answered your question. These are all basic things that we're looking at right now. And I think we're making entire businesses and revenue models around these things. And, even here at Microsoft, we're investing so much in these now and near things. I mean, the EO, for example, of recent, there hasn't been a true, in my mind, AI EO, and a lot of it can be covered in some of the earlier EOs. But we look at how are we going to hold agencies accountable for what I just spoke about, rather than what are we looking at in the future around these two topics.
All right. There's two things there that I want to pursue. One is the idea of use cases around artificial intelligence, and from both of those perspectives that I mentioned a few moments ago, the security of the artificial intelligence tools and using AI as part of a cybersecurity strategy broadly for an enterprise. Are you seeing agencies making effective use cases, making effective business cases for what they're going out to acquire? And if so, what are the components of a successful, or maybe successful is not even the right word, of a use case that delivers a result that is what the agency originally intended, or close to what an agency originally intended?
First and foremost, I think our government agencies are doing an amazing job of establishing use cases from what they have available and what they can understand. It's really hard to do predictive analytics and automated response, especially in a sovereign space, in an area where you're limited in terms of the data sets and what you have available to you. So utilizing some of that deep learning, the machine learning to do some of that enhanced threat detection piece is key. And to be honest with you, our government agencies have been doing it for years. There's nothing new here. It's just quantifying this now and doing it at scale, doing it at enterprise scale, and associating other issues with it, like skilling and learning and the time analysis. So to answer your first question, for me, it's not rocket surgery. They're doing it. And they're going to see the same challenges that I mentioned, right? The things that they're looking at to solve real time right now, though, Francis, is I would say things like AI augmented security operations. These are right now things, adaptive defense mechanisms, right? AI driven threat intelligence. That's a big one. That's a huge huge piece. You're seeing trillions and trillions and trillions of signals a day, right? How are you obtaining threat intelligence around these trillions of signals? And AI can gather all of these things, analyze the threat intelligence from various sources. Do I feel that I feel like those decisions are being based off of current budgets, current programs being built. Are they really addressing what AI can do on the national security space? No, absolutely not. And I unequivocally believe that we're in the right direction. But when you mix what private sector is seeing in terms of capability of AI and what that can do in terms of influence for our U.S. federal government and national security in general, it's not the security stuff. It's not the SOC. It's not threat intelligence. It's actual use cases that industry is using AI for that pose a threat to national security.
Regarding the time lag that you're alluding to there, in a technology situation like we have with artificial intelligence, how does one get around that cycle in order to be able to have the stuff that one needs for today, let alone thinking about where potentially we could be in 2027 or 2030, when that's what's required for the problem-solving piece of the kinds of problems that you are talking about?
I want to first acknowledge the fact that that process has been around for quite some time. And even though there's a lot of critique on how that process stops innovation, and we have this whole mentality of how we can't buy something when we need it now. That process also protects us and creates open and fair acquisition. And I applaud that because it, just like data, right? That process was sanitized, it was cleaned. It's probably the purest form of acquisition that we have in the United States. You can't do that. You don't have that type of regulatory boundary in the private sector in many cases. And this boundary has checks and balances. So I don't want to touch the question on the process.
Fair enough.
What I do want to do is I want to share with you, I was part of the Cyber Council this year prior to RSA. And I had a very candid conversation with our government officials in attendance and our private sector CEOs in attendance. A few of us there. And I was really, really happy to hear that the onus of responsibility to help our federal government innovate is shifting towards organizations that have made it through that process, have been time tested, own the platforms. I look at our peers at Google, at AWS, at Oracle, and us, especially at Microsoft, selfishly, that we've done a great job of, all of us have done a great job of checking our T's and dotting our I's. I was about to reverse that, right? And the onus of responsibility to bring that innovation to bear faster is on us, right? Not forcing smaller and smaller organizations to do more and more business with the federal government as they may be handcuffed into bringing new innovation on faster. But we don't have those types of restrictions and barriers as much to partner business to business, industry to industry. And I think that was a great conversation of how we can get to the warfighter, to the federal agency faster. And I'll applaud Microsoft with, we had a recent partnership that we announced just 2 days ago with Forescout Technologies, right? An OT organization, an organization that is well suited and embedded within the federal government and gone through that process and saying, hey, instead of us doing something new, let's go do something with someone that you're already doing it with. And now let's partner together and start utilizing some of our AI programming and some of the machine learning we're doing within our world here at Microsoft and pump that into the partnership that we have with you, with Copilot and security for Copilot and other things. And that allows us to bring real world innovation around artificial intelligence to the government now, right? And I think that's where we need to meet. And it's on us to understand where our government is. We need to meet them at the table, right? And I hope that answered your question, but that was the shift of conversation. And it was a big shift of mindset for me this year of understanding, hey, let's not critique the government and them not able to buy something and bring it on, but hey, we're there. Why don't we partner across the industry? Why don't we make those investments? And we're seeing a lot of that now.
We just have a minute or so left, Vishal, but to maintain that momentum, what would you like to see government do? And what would you like to see industry do to perpetuate the progress that you just described?
Number one, I would like us to partner with an industry, with government on non-traditional artificial intelligence use cases, right? I'm not talking about training models or SOC as a service. I'm talking about looking at industries that are crossing barriers and boundaries across the world in different sovereign environments that are making an impact on people. I look at the movie industry and the way they're revolutionizing AI to democratize film, and how that message is being relayed from person to person and cultures are being shared. This is a beautiful thing. But that technology was intended for good. Now, when we put that in other countries and other nations, how could that technology be governed and adopted as well for bad, right? And let's look at those use cases. Let's look over the horizon and see what use cases are being used in terms of artificial intelligence that can do good, that can do bad, that are intended, right, for probably the latter, the good part. And that's what I ask all of our federal CISOs, our CIOs, is let's get out of just zero trust, and let's get out of just, I would say predictive analytics and enhanced threat detection. And let's look at the innovations that private sector is moving and transcending barriers where they are now, our commercial diplomats across barriers in sovereign nations that are utilizing this technology for good in these same areas of the world where they are hacking for bad. And I think if we can ask those questions and understand those use cases, we're going to come out of this a stronger nation, and our public-private partnership will side with democracy and freedom, which is where I'd like us to be.
Vishal, it's always great to talk to you. A lot more I'd like to cover, but we're out of time. Thanks very much for joining me today.
Thanks, Francis.
You can read more about security solutions for AI in today's show notes at fedgovtoday.com.